Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Organizers Forum. It's so good to see you all here. My name is Jessica Lehman. I work as Executive Director of Senior and Disability Action, which is a nonprofit community organization in the San Francisco Bay Area. And I lead these Organizers Forum calls. I should describe myself before I go on. So I'm a white woman in my 40s. I've got shoulder length brown hair, gold hoop earrings, a warm green sweater because it just got cold on this coast. And my background is a bunch of colorful circles. All right. So for folks that are new to the Organizers Forum, it's a monthly call that we do designed to support and expand community organizing in disability communities. And so we do generally a different call each month, sometimes a couple calls on the same topic. Our format has changed based on people's needs and interests. And so sometimes we try to do an hour-and-a-half call instead of an hour, so we have more time to get into the topic. And we do a lot of calls really looking at intersectionality, about how are we building an inclusive, anti-racist, anti-oppression disability movement, and how are we working in solidarity with other social justice movements. And then we do a lot of calls about strategies, about how do we do this work. And today is one of those calls for people who are doing this work inside disability groups, inside disability community, and outside, right? The topic of hybrid meetings and events is one that people are talking about everywhere in all kinds of spaces. And it has become apparent that a lot of folks are looking to the disability community for guidance on what is needed, why, and how to make it happen. So before I get more into today's topic, let me do a couple more housekeeping things. So we really strive to honor collective access in these calls, which means that we all share responsibility for making the space as accessible as possible. And recognize that sometimes there are conflicting access needs, but with the vision that we can all work together with different disabilities and different needs. So we have two ASL interpreters today, and I want to apologize to them both publicly for some problems with today and just express some real gratitude for them being here. So we will keep the one interpreter spotlighted at all times. If there's any issue, of course, speak up or put it in the chat. We also have captioning. And if you aren't seeing the captions and would like to, go to, generally it's on the bottom of your screen where it'll say more, and you'll see 3 dots, and you can choose show subtitle. If you're on a smartphone, it'll look a little bit different, but you should have a show subtitle option. If it's distracting to you, you can also go to hide subtitle. We want to use the chat minimally because it can be distracting for people who use screen readers, but it is also a great way for some people to express themselves. So I'm going to invite people to put questions and resources in the chat, but we won't use it for a lot of hi or yes, or, you know, the small things that can get distracting. Excuse me. And we have everyone muted until we open for discussion, which will be about, what time do we get to discussion today? About 10:45, 10:50. So I want to ask folks to stay muted until then, but please put in the chat if there's any access need or other problem that we need to address. All right, so I think that covers it about the Organizers Forum, and we are recording today. We will be sure to share the recording and the transcript later to pass on to people. I know someone already asked me if you can't stay for the whole time, you will have access to this. All right, so today's topic, hybrid meetings and events. I know you're all here because you're interested in this topic and probably challenged like we all are on how to do this well. And so we're going to share learnings and best practices on how to make sure we are as accessible as possible, that we are as inclusive as possible by having people participate remotely over Zoom or some other online platform and in person, and really looking at not just how do we live stream it so someone can watch online and see what's happening in person, but how do we engage with each other and really have it interactive? We know it's complicated, right? There's a lot of different ideas. There's different technology to use. We often are trying to pull things together without a big budget or maybe a big staff. So what do we do to really make it work? And we have 3 folks who have agreed to speak today, who have a lot of experience in this area, and we're eager to hear from them. And I know I've talked to everyone that, I think everyone would say, I'm not an expert on this yet, right? And so today is also about what challenges are you seeing? And let's talk about it together and kind of identify how we can move forward together. So, excuse me, we have Lisa Cryer, who is a deaf interpreter and educational consultant. We have Itzel Romero, who is systems change advocate at the Center for Independent Living in Berkeley. And Peter Estes, my colleague, who's the Community Resource Program Director at Senior and Disability Action. Okay, so I'm actually, let me say a little bit more about each person, and then I'll have you give a visual description of yourself and share a little bit about what you do and what kind of hybrid meetings or events you have done so that we kind of know where to dig in. And then we'll do a panel discussion. We will then hear some questions from all of you. So please, along the way, go ahead and put all of your questions about hybrid meetings and events in the chat. And then we're going to do breakout rooms to have a chance to talk to each other a little bit more. Related to this topic, I know of interest to folks here is about how do we make sure we have remote participation in government meetings, and particularly now that we preserve that. So we'll do a quick update on that at the end of the meeting. All right, does that sound good to everyone? And are there any questions, anything I'm missing before we go on? Okay, I think that covers it. All right, so let me introduce our 3 speakers. So Itzel Romero uses she and they. And Itzel, I mentioned, is at the Center for Independent Living in Berkeley. Prior to that, she did grassroots organizing in their hometown community and advocated for nature, art, and community spaces. Currently, Itzel works to advocate for CIL's consumers and the community on issues including housing and COVID equity. So welcome, Itzel. And then we're going to have Peter Estes, who uses he and him. Peter is at Senior and Disability Action. And before that, he organized around education issues in Washington, D.C., his hometown. And now he manages SDA's team of peer advocates and organizes around issues of digital equity and corporate internet service provider accountability through SDA's free Wi-Fi campaign. And then we will hear from Lisa Cryer, who uses they and them. And Lisa is an ASL professor and accessibility consultant, primarily in education and technology spaces. All right, on that note, I'm going to invite Itzel to get us started with a visual description and a little bit about your experience on this topic.
Hi, my name is Itzel. For a visual description, I am Latina with long brown hair, wearing a black mask since I'm in the office today, and a black cardigan in front of a white and blue wall. And so I've done like 2 hybrid meetings One of them was for a town hall, and that one was to get engaged in the community to see what our advocacy priorities should be here at CIL. And that one was definitely more of a conversation. And the second one that we did was more recently, and that one was with our 50th anniversary summit. And that one was in a larger room and had a harder time to make sure that everyone was able to hear and listen in and see each other.
Thank you, Itzel. All right, next I'm going to have Peter introduce himself.
Hi, everyone. This is Peter. To start with a visual description, a white guy with sort of light brown hair, you know, in some parts there might be some blonde, and it's up in a bun. I have a beard, and I'm wearing a dark blue shirt today. I got the blur background on, but you can kind of see that there's some shelves with some photos on the back. And gosh, my experience with hybrid meetings, yes, Jessica, I'm so glad you said that. We all feel like we're still learning. You know, I think we've now done a handful of these, from some small ones that are just our program group meetings to mid-sized ones. We did a small teach-in, and we had our like big annual event as a hybrid event. So, you know, there's sort of a spectrum that we've tried with, yeah, as Itzel highlighted, some different challenges in the different spaces. So excited to talk about this with folks.
Thanks, Peter. All right, let's bring us all back. Unfortunately, oh, okay, there. Somebody beat me to spotlighting Itzel. I got confused. Lisa doesn't seem to be on yet, so I'm hoping that she will join us relatively soon. And I just realized I think Lisa uses they, them. So apologies. I hope they will join us soon. If someone sees Lisa before I do, please give me the heads up. But with Itzel and Peter, let's go ahead and start talking a little bit more. So the first question I wanted to ask you is, why do you think it's important to do hybrid events as opposed to just in person or just virtual? And either of you can start.
I can start. I know that for a lot of our consumers and even for myself, COVID is still a pandemic, and folks should not have to miss an event because they're worried about potentially getting sick. And so it's super important for folks who are immunocompromised to be able to access an event. But I also know my family members are not immunocompromised, but they live in San Diego. So it's difficult for them to support me from such a long distance away. So one way to make that more accessible is to do hybrid events, which, I mean, not just family members can join in on that, but people who don't live in California or cannot get physically here.
Yeah, it's nice to go second because Itzel basically said everything already. So thanks, Itzel. Yeah, I mean, that's exactly it for me too. I think it's expanding access and ensuring that safety is possible, right? We don't have to make the choice to have one or the other. We can do it well, and we can ensure that there's a we can ensure that we're like able to practice community care, right? Like if you're not feeling well, you can make the choice to not show up and still be a full participant in a hybrid space. And that's, I think, an important thing, right? We don't want people to have that pressure on them to show up because they feel like so committed to whatever our cause of movement is that they can't contribute without being there. And just not even like pre-COVID, right? Like this is something that we should have really been investing in because of the expansion of access we've seen for so many other folks in so many different ways. So yeah, I think there's lots of important reasons.
And people are excited to be back in person, you know, many people just to have that human connection. But But can you also remind people from an access point of view, why is it important to not just do a virtual event, which might be easier than doing hybrid?
Totally. I can jump on that quickly because that's a big piece of our digital organizing, right? Is organizing around internet equity and with folks who don't have internet access yet or aren't comfortable with the technology or just have such a bad connection that it'll drop out in the middle of the meeting. So I think that for us, we've, especially in our free Wi-Fi campaign, been investing in holding hybrid meetings as a program group for a little bit longer because we really think that, everyone has to be able to come to that meeting if they want to, and if they want to fight for that cause. So I think that's at least one aspect of it for us.
Thanks, Peter. So I've heard that some groups have, if they're doing a big conference, that they might do an online meeting that is totally separate from the in-person event so that it's a little easier and then people have one platform to engage with each other. What do you think about that approach?
I'll say that's the approach that we took. And I know for us, just to explain a little bit more about how our hybrid events have worked, we've used a smart board, which is essentially like an 80-inch TV that can display a computer screen. So you're able to see people who are on a Zoom meeting or a Google Meets meeting. And I think it's worked somewhat. I think often the issues that happen with the online meeting that are separate is that the audio doesn't always connect.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Yeah, I think that to me, there's some pros and cons of having like an online only event that's separate from the in-person event. I think that it can definitely enable like a cleaner event, in both spaces, right? Because like if you just have to focus on like one type of, you're not trying to bridge the spaces, it avoids a lot of the technical problems. But I think that like on the other side, a lot of all of our works is about like bringing people together and trying to build bonds. And so I think, if as much as we can keep trying to figure out how to bridge those spaces so that they feel like unified spaces and we don't feel like we have to, have them separated for like for it to work well. I think that's good. That's exciting to me and something that I think we can keep trying to figure out and keep doing better. It's sort of my hope.
Thank you. Yeah, it seems to me that we as disabled people are so used to being segregated and separated in various ways, right? And that we're definitely seeing it right now in terms of the COVID pandemic. And so I think there's definitely a lot of feelings that many of us have where it's like, okay, well, you can participate this way, but then you're only with these people, or this way, and then you're only with these people. Okay, so before we move into best practices that you've learned, I'm realizing it would be helpful for you each to talk a little bit more about the event that you did. And I want to ask Itzel to focus on the CIL Summit, if that works for you, and Peter to focus on SDA's 10th anniversary celebration, because you both had a lot of plans, a lot of technology. Can you tell us how you set it up to make it hybrid?
So for our summit, we had our smart board, and on the smart board, we displayed Google Meets meeting between our panelists. And then in terms of folks who were joining virtually to the summit, there was a separate Zoom meeting where they were able to see, I think, most of the smart board and most of the panelists who would have been in person. And then there was 1,000,001 secret systems to connect both the smartboard, the in-person panelists, and then like other audio technical stuff. And so I think that setup was definitely very interesting to try and connect like 2 different audio sources to a Zoom meeting. And hearing back from my parents who had joined virtually, they were not always able to hear virtually. So that is one critique that I know that people have. And I do think that Zoom is not always the most accessible.
Thank you, Itzel. Can you say a little bit more about like what was the experience for people in the room? Like how would they see and engage with people on Zoom and vice versa?
So there wasn't a lot of engagement between panelists and audience members and then Zoom audience members, unfortunately. I think just because of like what was available to us. If you had joined virtually, a lot of panelists had like a question portion where audience members could ask questions. If you were on Zoom, it's likely that if you put a question in the chat, it wouldn't be seen, just in terms of who was available to look at the Zoom meeting and then pass over questions. So that is one thing that I wish would have been available to folks who are joining virtually.
Okay, but full disclosure, I was a panelist for one of the sessions that that Itzel and your colleagues did, and I actually was out of town, so I had to participate virtually. And this is also an example of how virtual participation and hybrid participation is so important, not just for attendees, but for panelists, right, and people leading things. Sorry for my coughing today. My morning coffee makes me cough sometimes. So I was on Zoom and my co-panelist was in the room, and people made sure that anyone asking a question or making a comment in the room used the microphone so I could hear it. Excuse me. And there was a lot of repeating, you know, to make sure that things were accessible. So that was one thing that I saw that really worked, and kind of moving the camera around as needed, or saying, hey, can this person move over here so we can see each other? All right. And I just want to say it was really impressive to put on an event like that and make it hybrid and have so many different ways to participate. So thank you to you and your colleagues for making that happen. And Peter, tell us about SDA's 10th anniversary celebration and how that worked hybrid.
Yeah, I will I'll take a shot at it. And Jessica, obviously you were there in person. I was holding down the online space. So if you have anything to add or anything that I missed, please fill it in. All right, so it was sort of 3 spaces. We had the online space, we had an indoor space, and we had an outdoor space that we were sort of trying to all merge. And so that was sort of like our biggest nut to crack, was how to make sure that those all felt like the same space. And you know, for the indoor outdoor, we were just trying to make sure that there was, you know, open doors, right, flow through there. For bridging the online to in-person, I think we did a couple of things. We tried to make sure that some of the speakers were participating online and some were participating in person. We had a couple different, we're working with a really great venue, the Yerba Buena Center for the Arts, and like really supportive, helpful staff there helped us figure out a lot of this. But they had these large like TV monitors that they hooked up to Zoom for us. And so we had those feeding into the room so people could see who else was on the Zoom if they were in person. And we had it so that you know, you could access that computer and chat to the people on the Zoom. How many people did that? You know, not that many people, but there were a handful of times where we had little, conversations going back and forth there. And we also, we had a couple designated areas where we had the cameras streaming so that we sort of knew that they would be good footage feeding into the Zoom, to make sure that they were like capturing what we needed them to capture in person, because we kind of had to move to different spaces, right? Like the band, we had a band that played at the end of the night and they were set up inside. And we had a sort of more of a program of speakers sharing about SDA and some history, and they were speaking outside. So there were different sort of areas that we were capturing at different points throughout the night. Similarly, we kind of had to, I think, change which like audio input was feeding into the Zoom at least twice. There were, in terms of like the challenges that arose, there were definitely some challenges with the like audio going from the Zoom effectively to the in-person space. I think mostly the audio coming into the Zoom was decent. There were a couple times when we had to like remind speakers to get closer to the mic or whatever it was, right? Some people were like holding the mic like down at their waist. But that's kind of that's always a challenge. And then the other thing was the audio from the band was just kind of more complicated audio. So that's, sort of a learning. Was like that didn't translate quite as well. It's a lot easier to pick up a speaker, but the audio from the band, even though they were really good and you could still tell they were really good, wasn't quite as like crisp. I think the other thing that we tried to do was make sure that both spaces felt like fully programmed. We knew that in the in-person space, there would be some sort of natural time where people were seeing each other and just chatting. And so we try to recreate that on the online space as well. We tried to do some breakout room conversations. We had a designated online MC. This was very much an all staff hands on deck kind of affair, so like I was running tech online and our teammate Rhea was like hosting the space. And then we had a different, MC come in later for sort of like a guest come in later for some of the pitch to do with someone in person. They did it together. But we tried to make sure that both spaces felt like they were really like the event, it wasn't like one space or the other was the event and the others were watching. We try to make sure it was balanced on both sides.
Thank you so much. Fun to hear about all of those components. So I want to ask you each, what is a best practice that you have learned, or feel free to give a couple if you want. What really worked that you would recommend to other folks?
I think if there's any ability to make sure that the experience online and in person is at least somewhat similar, it's definitely not going to be the same, but I know for our town hall, we had the ability to make it a conversation between everybody that was there, who were both in person and online. And I think that gave it a more community feel than the summit, where folks who were joining online are definitely not going to have the same experience as those who are in person. And that's one thing that I really appreciated about the town hall versus the summit. I think another one is just trying to have the best audio equipment that you can find, that you can access, because that tends to be the issue with Zoom, is that, or just any online format, is that the audio doesn't always translate, as Peter just mentioned. It's just a little bit more difficult to get the same experience with audio.
Thank you. That's really helpful. Peter?
Yeah, I completely agree. Would echo the audio piece. I think that's like been the clear sticking point. It's easier to figure out how to set up the videos. But the audio is like a little bit more of a like a changing problem. You know, it's like different speakers will engage with it differently. It'll pick up different types of sounds differently. And like along with that, we really benefited from the advice that we got from the YBCA. That is obviously like something that was special and we were lucky to have. But like seeking someone out who you know is familiar with that is a helpful thing to do. Like, you know, a lot of us have members or volunteers in our organizations, I think, and you know, that web of people know someone who like does tech theater, right? And like finding someone who can at least think through it with you is helpful, if you're not already like that person who knows all about like the audio systems. And the other thing is what Itzel said, you like going back and forth between the spaces, making sure that both spaces feel like the same meeting, I think is really helpful. Like the back and forth can be challenging, and it's not exactly what you said, Itzel, so I don't mean to put words in your mouth, but like what we've tried to enjoy doing is going back and forth between the spaces so that like, you know, even if it's just exchanging questions in person online, it's clear that both spaces are valued. Yeah. But looking for more best practices, honestly, still looking.
Yeah, everyone who is participating, we want to hear all of your best practices next. I really love what you said, Peter, about finding somebody who knows somebody who either knows how to do this or can even think through it with you. And I remember Peter and I and a handful of others spent a lot of time thinking about, well, we could do this and we could do that, and maybe we should do this, you know, and things like how Peter had mentioned, like putting tape on. Actually, I don't know that we managed to put tape on the floor, but that was the idea, right? About if a speaker stands here and we have a cell phone on a tripod already set up, then we know how that's going to look on Zoom, right? So that people online can participate. And just being able to think through it ahead of time, even if it's not people who are paid to do it, just to kind of do some brainstorming. And hopefully that's part of what we're doing today. So I'm going to skip ahead a little bit. You both have been talking about some of the challenges, which is great. I want to ask what kind of tools do you recommend as far as making the audio and the video work? And again, you don't have to have all the answers, but you can share maybe what you used at your events.
I can start with this one. So there's I mean, you know, like microphones, important for both the in-person space, hearing quality, and for the for making sure that it can carry effectively to the Zoom, I think. We have at our general meeting also used some like area mics that can kind of pick up a little bit more of the ambient sound. That is definitely like using those as sort of like get someone else's advice if you're not already familiar with that. And we have a tool that like the jury is still a little bit out on, but it's this owl tool. It's called the Meeting Owl, from Owl Labs. It's a cute little speaker with a wraparound camera on it, that you can have it show like a band at the top that is just a 360 view of whatever space it's in, and it can also track speakers and like show multiple at a time. I think that for video, it's really great, because you can also toggle off the 360 because sometimes that's distracting, and then it'll just pick up people as they speak. And for audio, we've had mixed response. At our teach-in, it seemed to work really well. So like the person who was using it was right in front of it, and if other people needed to use it, they just came up to it. But in some smaller meetings, we've actually had some mixed response from people like where one person in the room seems to be getting the audio picked up really well and one person doesn't. So, you know, if you're ever thinking about it, you can get it, and they have a return policy. But you know, test it out, definitely test it out in as much situations as you can. But we've also worked with other people who love that thing, right? The Yerba Buena Center, who was coaching us on all this stuff, they love their owl. So it might just be us getting used to using it.
And I'll echo on the microphones. I think that was super important for us, for at least the panelists and then in-person audience, to hear each other. I think if there is any ability to make all the technology and like everything very condensed, makes it easier for people to hear each other, especially if you've got like a Zoom, like whoever's using the Zoom computer, if it's farther away from the panelist or the smartboard, which is what our situation was, it makes it a ton easier to capture the audio on Zoom. I would also say, I think utilizing Zoom instead of other platforms seems to be the best option. And yeah, I think also having captions is a really important tool.
Great, thank you. So I got news from Lisa Cryer, and unfortunately, I'm not even sure where they are joining from, but there is a snowstorm where they are. I don't know if somebody here knows where there's a snowstorm right now, and their internet is down. So they are trying to join. I'm hoping maybe they can at least join by phone. Actually, that's not going to work because they use ASL. So we will see if Lisa can join us at some point. If not, we'll find a way to capture their experiences and share that later as well. So thanks for that on the technology. I'm sure this is an area we'll come back to. But a lot of what you're talking about like takes a lot of planning, takes a lot of different technology. What do people do if they don't have a lot of money or staff? What if you're a community group without a budget and you want to do a hybrid meeting? What would you recommend? Or is it, we need more places in the community that are set up that people can go use? What do you think? Either of you want to take this one?
I think this is a very difficult question. I think like audio and like tech stuff is always going to be expensive. However, I will say if you have the ability to have just a laptop there and maybe even like a very cheap speaker might help, just to have that audio echoed a little bit more. I will say that I think that the less tech you have, the more accessible it's going to be, or the less accessible it's probably going to be. Just because you're not going to be able to get the same audio and visual experience as you would in person. So it's probably not going to be the same experience. But I really like the idea of a community space where hybrid events are possible, and accessible to anyone who needs to utilize them. I think that's a beautiful idea.
Yeah, more of those. That is, yes, it's sort of a yes and for me, Jessica. I think definitely more of those spaces. And thinking about like those that might exist already, you know, a lot of this tech, at least the microphones and projectors, if you want to display like a gallery view of people on Zoom, exist at least in school buildings. So if you have, you know, a local school near you that you have a relationship with or think you can build one, that's maybe an interesting venue, just because it's, you know, they usually have some kind of space that would work. Comes with a whole set of other complications, but maybe. And then like just super DIY, right? I think you can do a fair bit in like at least a smaller size meeting with a laptop or a cell phone camera, and having someone join their audio from a phone that can be passed around, that like, ensures that the audio that is being fed into the Zoom is the at least the closest to the speaker as possible. So those are, probably the DIY things that come to mind, but also, I think that Jessica's taking great notes here. Like maybe we can try to formulate this into a set of tips, tricks, best practices, likely challenges, because the more that we can share and co-create that, the more we'll learn together, I think.
Great. Thanks to both of you for those good ideas, making me do a lot of thinking along the way. So folks should feel free to share questions in the chat. I'm surprised if this is a quiet group without a lot of questions. There's one question that came in on the registration form from Alice, and Alice says, hybrid meetings online usually have substantial sound quality problems that are significant access barriers for me with my auditory processing disability. How can this problem be affordably solved? Captions aren't enough for me, and I need COVID safety. Any ideas on that?
I think for us, often our audio issues were resolved when the microphone was closest to the speaker. So I think if you are planning a hybrid event, planning for whatever microphone you're using to be as close as possible to who's going to be speaking. I really like Peter's idea of joining from a cell phone for the audio. That makes a ton of sense. But yeah, I think that just being as close as possible, and also trying to insulate the sound as best as possible. I know for our summit, we were in a huge atrium, so it wasn't really possible to condense that sound. And it's almost like being outside at that point where you've got audio kind of shooting everywhere, and nowhere to bounce off of. So if you are planning a hybrid meeting, and obviously that can create an issue in terms of access, in terms of COVID safety, making the in-person event as small as possible, but at least having a close proximity to audio is important.
Yeah, I would echo a lot of what Itzel just said. I think this is the primary challenge that we've faced is making sure that the audio quality is as good as possible. And yeah, I think I would really echo a lot of what Itzel said. I don't need to reinvent the wheel here. Alice, did you want to add to that or clarify your question?
Yeah, I do. I would have written a more in-depth question, but it only allowed for 255 characters. Peter and Itzel, I'm guessing you didn't see the email I sent you, which had more details in it about
I saw it.
Oh, you did? Wonderful. Okay, well, let me just explain since most people didn't see it. So unfortunately, certainly having the microphone positioned correctly and the other suggestions can help, but there's some problems. I've been to many hybrid meetings, many I don't go to because there's too many disability access barriers for me. It's just too frustrating. There's even been micro meetings where there's been headset microphones, which are if they're good ones, they're the best there are, which are inaccessible, mainly because of often there's machine noises. Most people won't notice them because of my auditory processing disability. They don't only make it hard for me to hear, but they cause enormous amount of stress. I don't know if people are familiar with misophonia. I don't have a formal diagnosis, but the extreme stress and frustration seems to be very common from what I've read about it. Captions, even very high quality captions, aren't good for me because two reasons. One, I have trouble following quickly moving text. Still text is great, but it moves. The other thing is because for work and for my activism, including with Senior Disability Action, and my other things, I'm staring at a computer screen all day, and I often need to rest my eyes. So I, even if I could read it for part of the time, I can't read it for all of the time. So when you're not getting, when you think your audio is reasonably good, it's not necessarily, because people like me often just aren't going to go. Like, I would have loved to go to the fundraiser. I know you did some important COVID safety things, but they weren't enough for me. And I knew that without extremely high quality sound equipment, without an expert sound engineer, it's just not going to be accessible to me. So I have an idea for better access for everybody. I think it's really important when you mentioned that some folks don't have internet access, or there's sound quality, or their a virtual connection to support might cut out, or that they don't know how to use technology. There can be a separate participation room for anybody who like that, or anyone who just wants to be with people. The speakers will be attending virtually. There can be good sound quality equipment in that. So, there still will be sound quality problems in that room, but at least it won't be the speakers or the facilitators. That would be so much more accessible. It's so painful not being able to attend because of COVID safety problems. And now with BART not requiring, or any public transit requiring masks, I can't, even if a meeting does have excellent COVID safety, if I often can't get there. And it's just so, these virtual meetings are wonderful with good sound quality. These hybrid meetings, almost everyone is inaccessible, and a few which are not perfectly accessible, but reasonably accessible, are really from very well-funded organizations with excellent equipment, excellent sound and mixing engineers.
Thank you so much, Alice. Appreciate hearing from you. And I think that's a really interesting recommendation about having the speakers participate virtually, even if other people are in person. So thank you for that. There's another question in the chat from Brian Shea. AI captions are nowhere near as good as CART, but CART isn't always available. Are there any affordable fixes? That's a tough question. Does anyone, Itzel or Peter, do you know of any, or does anyone else have suggestions?
I will go first to say that I unfortunately don't have really any answer to this question. I was not part of the team for either our summit or our town hall that did captions. And I can't remember off the top of my head what we used, so I will leave this question to Peter.
Yeah, we have just been lucky to set aside funds for CART in our budget for most of our major events, at least. So I also don't have a great example. I would wonder whether there are folks who are learning captioning would be interested in it as experience, and maybe connecting with some of those. I also we've worked with some groups that will give discounts to nonprofits or small organizations, or do sliding scale. I'm sure you've asked about that or looked into that, but always worth it. Yeah, I wish I had a better answer also. It's a good question.
This also is making me think about, if we're how do we make sure resources are available? But maybe this is also going back to philanthropy, going to the big foundations to say, what are you doing on captioning and interpreting, and can they be doing more to require to make sure there's a budget line in every organization's budget that they approve, or that it's a separate grant. I don't know. I could keep going, obviously. Okay, so we're at 10:54. I'm going to propose, instead of breakout groups, we've got a couple ideas in the chat that I want to hear about. And why don't we open up the discussion to what folks have learned, and let's just do some sharing on what can work. So I'm going to start with Mike Schweinsberg, and please correct me if I mispronounce anyone's name. Go ahead.
That's the closest most people have gotten to that. Thank you. Schweinsberg is how you pronounce it. Thank you. So I answered the question in the chat about captioning, and we've been using a service, $20 a month plugin called REV, all caps. And it has been not only superior to Google and Zoom's captioning, which is god awful, but we also had an event the other day, well, maybe a couple of weeks ago, where we had Total Access, which is supposed to be one of the better captioning services, that was nowhere near as accurate as Rev was. So REV is a $20 a month add-on that, we're not a wealthy organization at all, but we do find the funding for that, and I'd recommend it to anybody.
Thanks so much, Mike. And so that's AI. Those are automatic captions.
Yes.
Okay, great. All right. What are
Let me just say this. They have a free demo period if you want to just check it out. Just check it out. You'll see what I mean.
That's good to know. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. So, Blaze from New York said this was a little bit ago. Another idea is check with the virtual audience to make sure you're being heard, right? I think that's an important reminder, is we just have to allow some space for ourselves and each other, that it's not going to be perfect. And we'll check in and make changes along the way. How many of us have been on a recent meeting, not just the early Zoom meetings early on in the pandemic, where it's, oh, you're on mute, right? Or now it's that whole TV screen is on mute, or one side is cut off, and we can fix it. We just have to tell each other. Brooke asks, any advice about smaller interactive meetings with breakout groups with hybrid participation? That's a great question. And Brooke, do you want to say more about what you have found? Do you have ideas or challenges?
I'm not sure how my sound is. I hope okay, just with the mask and the big space. I think that I have ideas that I haven't tried, and I'm interested to hear what other people have tried, because there's often a hesitancy to try new things because you don't want to screw the meeting up, So this is a sort of an ongoing challenge. And then finding the time to test things is also hard. But one thing I've wondered is whether you could have like a phone or an iPad in the small group that is one of the virtual participants, so that you could have virtual and in-person, almost as if that iPad is sort of an avatar for the person, or the phone. I like the idea of just using a phone. That's a lot less complicated than setting up an iPad. My other experience was that once we had a critical mass of virtual folks vis-a-vis the in-person folks. So we actually just had a separate virtual small group. So there was one virtual small group, and then there were two in-person small groups. But I'm really interested to try to come up with ways that even the small group experience could be hybrid.
Thank you.
Just one other thing that helped, that I learned from some article I read somewhere, don't remember where, was, and this really only works when you like in a team, like where people already know each other, but I assigned buddies so that like each virtual person had a buddy who was an in-person person at the meeting. And so, for example, there was like an activity with butcher paper, and the virtual person, instead of having like a Jamboard online plus butcher papers, we just used the paper in the real life space. And the people who were virtual would tell their buddy, what they wanted to write. And so then the buddy was doing their own stuff plus the virtual person stuff.
I love those ideas and solutions.
Yeah, I was going to say, I feel like you're answering your own question for us, and it's really helpful to us. No, but I wish that I had more experience trying what you're saying. I think that's a really, really good idea. Mostly what we've ended up doing is, like we have a critical mass of people online, a critical mass of people in person, and there'll be breakout groups online, breakout groups in person. But I really like the idea of merging the spaces, and for certain events, it could work really well. But yeah, I think that probably phone is easier. The only thing I'll say about the phone is that it is also a little bit more likely to drop out. I've had that problem at least.
Thanks, Peter.
I really want to thank everyone. I apologize. I had a previously scheduled thing that I have to go to now, so I have to leave early. But I really want to thank you all for letting me join you today in this amazing space. And I learned a lot from the session. So thank you.
Thanks, Brooke. Good to have you. And Gulzar, another shout out to another SDA person. In my experience, having multiple virtual people devices gets a lot of audio feedback. But if there's capacity to go into multiple physical rooms for the breakout, it has been helpful. And similarly, Alice was commenting that that a separate virtual only breakout group is more accessible, that with audio processing, passing a phone around gets background noise. And I'm remembering, I was at an event with the Meta Fund, which is based in San Francisco, and they had, I'm thinking they have a community room, and I want to talk to them about, would they consider like really setting up some good hybrid technology and kind of advertising that groups can use it. So they had a number of small conference rooms, and for breakouts, I remember I was online and there were some people in person, and they did it pretty seamlessly, that they had a TV set up. I mean, this is higher technology, right? But they had the TV set up, and they had a tech person who would make sure to kind of pull up or put the right person in the Zoom breakout room so that I would show up in the room with the in-person people, if that made sense. All right, what else? Oh, here's another from Shaya. Shaya, do you want to share that out loud, or do you want me to read this?
Sure, I can share it out loud. One tip that I've heard that we'll be trying out at BCIL is to just do a practice meeting hybrid. So I think for us that will probably look like having some like folks that we know really well, and just kind of like have a gathering that's maybe a little bit more social, and then you know, see how it is, test out the technology, and do that at least once before trying to do our annual meeting hybrid.
I would just echo that, and also say that we've been really grateful for the grace people have given us. And, you know, I think part of that has been the framing, like, especially when we're in a meeting of SDA members, right? Like, a lot of people have been willing to like be on the experimental journey because we know that it's worth it in the end. And so like, I think part of it has been that we're continuing to try to narrate that, right? That we're all on this learning journey together, and that like, there will be bumps in the road, but like, keep pointing them out, and we'll keep learning about them together.
Somebody was saying today's meeting really should have been hybrid if we're talking about hybrid events. So maybe next time we do that. Actually, that's an interesting idea for December. We'll talk about that later. What other recommendations do folks have? Or what other problems have you seen? Blaze, go ahead. Oh, Blaze, we can't hear you. Still no. Okay, Blaze, let us know if you work that out. We'll leave you spotlighted for a second. In the meantime, does anyone else have a recommendation or comment or question? There you are. Go ahead, Blaze. Blaze, are you there? Okay, soon we will get Blaze. So let's talk a little bit about accessibility. I wanted to add Itzel and Peter. I think we've all done a lot of work on accessibility in person and accessibility online. What do you do to maximize accessibility in a hybrid meeting? And you can repeat, I think some of these things you've already covered.
Yeah, I think we've touched on a handful of them. Captioning, high quality captioning, if you can get it, seems really important. Really great to know about this Rev tool. Interested to try that. And ASL. Also, like we have been thinking a lot more about, like, you know, making sure to record our meetings and ensure that there is access for posterity. So having ASL interpretation is really important to us, and captions. Likewise, Zoom now, if you enable the feature, you have to go in and turn it on, but will record interpretation in multiple languages. So if you work with interpreters in your meetings regularly, that's a really exciting development. It's pretty recent from my understanding. You know, these are all things that cost, but we have found them to be really beneficial and important. I think there was also like a really simple, important reminder earlier, which is that, like, ask people how it sounds. And be willing to, like, pause and take the time to address those issues as much as you can. And if you're using mics in person, like, remind people where to hold them and how to hold them, or hold them for people, whatever's needed.
Great, thanks. Itzel, do you have anything to add to that?
I mean, I'll echo everything that Peter said, and also add that oftentimes people have conflicting access needs, and so that can limit accessibility for some people and allow full accessibility for others. So I think having the most available isn't always a solution for some folks.
Yeah, thank you for that. What do you two or other people in the room think about, do you want your captioner, ASL interpreters, and other language interpreters to be in person or on Zoom or your other virtual platform?
This is Blaze. Let's see. Is this working now?
Yes.
Okay.
Blaze, can you hold on? Can you hold on 1 second?
Yeah. I just wanted to make sure that this worked because
Yes.
it's a new headset that I'm used to.
Yeah, thank you.
Sure.
I just want to hear from Itzel and Peter about where you want interpreters and captioners, and then we'll go to Blaze.
Yeah, it's so curious to hear your thoughts on this. I think so far at this moment in time, it has been helpful for us to have the interpreters and captioners online. It's a little bit easier for us so far to set someone up in person with, like, a cell phone that feeds into the correct interpretation for them than it has been to make sure that the interpreter's audio from in person is high quality enough to feed into the Zoom. And similarly for ASL, it's been a little easier to, like, spotlight someone than to have another video feed set up at the event that is dedicated. That could all be different depending on different contexts, but that's so far, I think, been my experience.
Yeah, I definitely agree with all of that. And we'll add that I think what made it easy for us to figure out where to put interpreters was having a registration link and making sure that there was a spot for people to request their access needs, and specifically interpretation and what language interpretation they needed. And then making sure that they were detailing whether or not they were going to be joining virtually or in person. And that kind of helped us figure out, okay, maybe we need a Spanish interpreter in person, but ASL is easier if it's online.
Thank you so much. Yeah, this is all going to make us get even better at planning. Okay, Blaze, you are up.
Okay, great. Well, thank you for allowing me to be in this space. A couple of things to consider is I really like the idea of having either a USB mic or a USB like, kind of little soundboard that you can just plug into the computer and plug microphones into that, because that way you can run your own. You can kind of run your AV if you don't have the budget to hire an AV person and plug in a pair of headphones and monitor that stuff. I do a bit of podcasting, so that's something I tend to be pretty comfortable with. Plus you've got that direct audio source that's going into the computer, and if you're plugging in an external microphone, chances are the audio is going to be significantly better. And I cannot agree with you, Peter, enough about the microphone coaching piece of it, because it is that's just so critical to anyone that's using a microphone.
Thank you, Blaze. Itzel or Peter, do you want to comment on that?
I can definitely agree on the microphone coaching piece. That is super important. Some people talk really fast and some people talk really slow. And so that can be really difficult for microphones to pick up if you're talking way too slow or way too fast, or you're too close or too far away.
Yeah, agreed. I think that's a really, really helpful comment, Blaze. And I like the idea of experimenting with USB microphones. If you don't have like a space where they're going to provide you microphones, that certainly seems like potentially a great way of increasing the sound quality or the audio quality.
Yeah, I love that. That's great. And Alice put in the chat that there's a discussion from Alice Wong at Disability Visibility Project called "Why I Won't Be Organizing Any In-Person Fundraising Events for the Foreseeable Future," and concerned about having that some hybrid events create two tiers where non-high risk people get to talk and hang out and socialize, and then there's a lesser event for high risk people. And I think it's a great example of conflicting access needs, right? And why we're here as the people that really can't participate or have a good experience online because of tech or various issues. Alice, I'm not going to call on you right now because I want to make sure we're hearing from a lot of different people, but I really appreciate your comments. And Shaya is up next.
Yeah, I had a question kind of related to Alice's point about what people have seen to try and like replicate some of like the in-person informal conversation maybe that you might have with someone you know. And I think one thing I've wondered about, I've never really seen done, but I see that Zoom has the option where you can pick which breakout room you can go into. So in theory, like, if you're friends with someone and they go into a breakout room, you could join that breakout room too. But yeah, I'm curious if anyone has seen anything that like can kind of replicate the more social aspect.
I think that, yeah, what we've mostly done is group breakout rooms. That was something that we were really interested in trying to figure out for our anniversary event, and it was just kind of one of the pieces that didn't make it. And partially because it would have required, I think, more for the size of the event, would have required more more computers for people to join from at the event that we had. But I think I really like that idea, because that sort of informal like off the cuff socializing is yes, still one of the, I think, the biggest differentiators between in-person space and hybrid space. You know, people will do in-person, like informal socializing, you know, when we're joining the Zoom, but then that's everyone talking over everyone at once, which is not always the most pleasant experience. But you know, it's still nice to have people connecting. But I just wish I had a better answer. I think it's a really, really good thing to try to figure out. One of the nuts. I cut myself off, but nuts to crack is what I said.
Yeah, I'll echo that having smaller breakout rooms is important. And I think one thing that I've seen on mostly just online events is having like a random breakout room with someone that you've never met before, so that you do have that aspect that oftentimes happen in person where you're talking to someone who you've never met before. And so getting to meet someone new that way is possible through a smaller breakout room.
Thank you. Love those ideas. And this is reminding me, and Peter, stop me if this is what you, I don't want to repeat what you said, but you reminded me in planning our fundraiser, we were thinking about having someone walk around with a computer and kind of interview someone in person, and just a way of kind of having a different kind of engagement. But it was just too much to do, but I think something I'd love to try in the future, where then if you have people online, especially in a breakout room, so it's a small number, and then they see someone in person, where there's kind of this novelty of, ideally they're going to say, oh, what's happening over there? And, you know, what do I see behind you? Or, you know, tell me about this or that. So one idea that we at SDA haven't tried yet, but would love for someone to try. And another quick thought I have on this is to kind of think about who you can plant in certain places. Like, find the chatty people who are going to want to talk to whoever is around, right? And kind of put one of those and really invite them. You know, when I say plant them, like ask them to just start chatting, because sometimes it's just that first step that will get things going. All right, how is it already 11:17? So there's clearly a lot of work to be done. I am now envisioning, I would love, and if this already exists, somebody please speak up. I would love to start putting together a guide on hybrid events. Maybe it's not even a guide yet. Maybe it's just like here's what we're learning, to be able to kind of get all of this in one place, to be able to share it, maybe a Google Doc where people can keep adding to it, or putting, oh, I tried that and that didn't work. Does anyone know about anything like that may exist already? And, or is anyone interested in helping develop something like that? Seeing a couple nods. All right, I'm going to ask folks to put in the chat. You can just say, you know, I'm interested in helping. Great. Peter is setting an example. I didn't plant him, I promise. Or maybe I did, because I invited him to speak. So anyone else who's interested, even if you feel like you don't have a lot of experience or time, and maybe put your email in the chat as well, or send me an individual chat, so I can email folks and we can follow up on that. And partly in that too, we can do some brainstorming on what do we need from broader community, right? Is it the making community spaces accessible or available? Is it making funding available? Who knows? I'm sure there are lots of other ideas. All right, so I want to talk very briefly about remote participation, because this is all about making sure people can participate in multiple ways. And we know that most government meetings went online, you know, at city, county, state, and federal levels, that there was online or phone public comment. There were commissioners or elected representatives who were able to participate remotely. And now people are saying, oh, well, now we can meet in person, so we want to get rid of that. And one thing we're hearing in San Francisco is this concern that it gets too long when you allow people to call in for public comment. And there's a concern about people calling from outside of San Francisco to weigh in on San Francisco topics. I think it's a little bit of, it's easier for people to participate and share comment that way. And so it gets longer. And yes, there's more that the supervisors have to listen to when they're in a hearing. And so what's happening in San Francisco right now is there is legislation that was introduced to end public comment by phone, to make it so that you can only come in person. And not only we at Senior and Disability Action, but a lot of community groups, disability and senior groups, but also groups of working people and parents and youth and all kinds of people who have trouble going in person to a long meeting are wanting to fight to keep remote participation. And we had talked about this at an organizers forum a few months ago. So I want to invite other people to share what is happening in your city or county or state. Are you having to fight to keep remote participation? Blaze, go ahead. Oh, no, we can't hear you again. Okay, while Blaze works on that, I'm going to ask people to either say yes or raise your hand or put yes in the chat if your city or county currently has a remote option for participating in public meetings. Okay, I see some nods. And say yes or not or whatever if they're talking about ending it, or if you've heard anything about that. This may be one of the funny times that the San Francisco Bay Area, that claims it's so progressive, is leading the way in ending remote public comment. Oh, okay. Iman says most of New York City has it. Some have ended it. Okay, let me ask folks to say yes again in whatever way works for you, if you want to make sure that we keep remote participation in public meetings. Yeah, okay. So it sounds like this is something we need to revisit, is how are we fighting together for it? And the reason I wanted to bring it in very briefly today was because it seems like there's a connection in how we're educating the public, how we're educating community groups, how we're educating government about the importance of having different ways to participate and making things fully accessible. Okay, yes, I'm seeing in the chat, remote participation is crucially important. We need virtual equity for meetings. So thank you for that. I'm going to ask for a final comment from Peter and Itzel, if there's anything that we missed or anything that you want to leave people with, or anything you want to repeat that feels particularly interesting or important to you. And then I'm going to propose, I mentioned sometimes we do 2 months on the same topic. I'm going to propose we come back in December. And if our speakers can't come back, that's okay. Some of you may not be able to, but to continue this conversation among disability community members about how do we kind of develop this guide for hybrid meetings, right? Maybe we can get a start and then share that and do some more work at the next meeting. And how do we connect that to the fight to preserve remote participation? I'm seeing some nods and thumbs up. Okay, so that's what we're gonna do. So thank you to everybody. Peter, do you wanna give some final thoughts?
Sure, yeah, I'll take a crack at it. well, first off, thanks to everyone for all the comments and ideas and questions. We're all learning together, so I'm really glad to be in this space with you all, and Itzel, you especially. Thanks for being up here. Yeah, in terms of final comments, I think what Alice is raising in the chat is one of the most important conversations about this, right? Is how do we make sure that we are not developing a two-tiered system? How do we make sure that like what we're striving for is effective merging? How do we continue to balance different access needs? And keep getting better at this, right? Because I believe that there are ways to do this all very well, and it's a matter of learning, of like identifying the right tech setup, and all the other like requirements and planning pieces that go together with it. Yeah, I think my main takeaway from today is I'm really glad that there are so many people that are thinking about this and that want to keep working on like sharing our knowledge together so we can get better at it together.
Thank you so much, Peter. Itzel?
Yeah, I'll echo everything Peter said, and that I really hope more folks are planning hybrid events in the future, and that it seems to be emerging as one of the ways we can be accessible to a lot of people who don't have internet access, or who maybe can't make it in person. And so thank you for the folks who shared their ideas, and just for the folks who are thinking about this, because it is super important.
Great. Thank you for that, Itzel. So huge thanks to Peter Estes from Senior and Disability Action. Peter shared his email in the chat, peter@sdaction.org, and we will send this out as well. To anyone who have emails, if you registered, if you did not register, be sure I have your email. And thank you to Itzel Romero from the Center for Independent Living in Berkeley. I also want to thank our two interpreters, Kat and Megan, for not only interpreting, but dealing with a lot of challenges for this call. Thank you to our captioner, and thank you to everyone who participated. It was really wonderful to hear challenges and experiences and recommendations and ideas from everyone. And I look forward to continuing that with all of you in December. Go ahead and mark your calendar. The third Tuesday in December is December 20th. It'll be the same time, 10 o'clock Pacific time, 1 p.m. Eastern time. And I'm sorry, Central and Mountain always confuse me, so I don't want to say it wrong. And on that note, thank you again, everyone. Take care and take action. Bye.
Bye, folks.